Taeyoung, Jungkook, Jimin, and Suga recently traveled to Los Angeles, sparking a slew of comments and theories on social media. The airport became the perfect setting for certain groups to once again draw erroneous conclusions about the members' relationship. First, Suga and Jimin arrived together. Then, Jungkook arrived from another location and was caught greeting Jimin with a brief, formal gesture, a simple handshake and a respectful nod. Despite the clear nature of the scene, multiple rumors suggested that Jungkook and Jimin were acting like a couple. Some people even claimed that he held her hand in a romantic way, which is not true. The footage is clear. Jungkook simply greeted her politely and without any emotional or affectionate intention beyond the professional respect they have for each other. The most curious thing of all is that those who spread these versions completely omitted the most obvious detail: Jungkook didn't even arrive with Jimin and Suga. He appeared alone, walked over to where they were, greeted them politely, and then continued on his way. There was no affectionate interaction, no walking together, or anything to justify the claims made on social media. In fact, what caught some attention was Jungkook's gesture. First, he bowed his head slightly as a form of respect, which is common in Korean culture, and then extended his hand to greet Jimin. It wasn't anything special or out of the ordinary. Despite the fact that everything was captured on video, there are still those who distort the facts to construct a baseless narrative. On the other hand, the fact that Jungkook greeted Jimin and Suga after not seeing them for a while doesn't mean there was any tension or something special behind the greeting. These types of situations should teach us to observe with more objectivity and less imagination. Not every gesture has a double meaning, nor does every chance encounter contain a romantic story. Respect between colleagues should not be confused with deeper feelings simply for the sake of fueling fantasies. After analyzing what happened between Jungkook, Jimin, and Suga at that moment, it's inevitable to notice certain patterns that can no longer be ignored. As they walked through the airport, it was clear that Jimin and Suga were walking together, leaving Jungkook completely alone behind. Although some try to justify this scene with baseless theories, the videos show a different reality. Jungkook not only kept a considerable distance from Jimin, but also avoided any interaction that might seem close or natural. This is reflected not only in his body language but also in the gestures he makes when forced to appear next to him. The company, aware of the attention this dynamic generates, seems to take advantage of any opportunity to stage scenes to keep alive a story that no longer has any real traction. One of the details that caught the most attention was when Jungkook bowed to Jimin and Suga. An act that many overlooked, but which makes it clear that the two are not as close as some claim. After that bow, came a much-discussed scene. Jungkook was practically forced to hold hands with Jimin. This action was clearly forced, as a strategy to cover up what was really happening, that Jungkook arrived and moved alone the entire time. This isn't the first time this has happened. On many occasions, Jungkook has demonstrated with his actions that he isn't comfortable with certain approaches when they are imposed by the company. He no longer hides his discomfort. Whenever he can, he stays away from Jimin, as if he's tired of having to play out a story he no longer believes in. But when Jungkook is with Taeyoung, the difference is evident. His way of expressing himself changes, his face relaxes, and his gestures become more natural. Everything flows naturally, as if he were where he truly wanted to be. There is no distance, no coldness, no false effort. There is only authentic connection, and not even the most perfect script can hide that. One of the clearest moments of this disconnection with Jimin occurred after Jin's concert. While many said Jungkook had left with Jimin, the reality was different. Jungkook left the venue alone, in his car. And not just him, Suga also had his car, and Jimin had his. Each took a different route, proving that there wasn't the supposed union that some defend with unproven theories. The scene was clear. Jungkook returned home completely alone, without company. And while this was happening, it also became known that Taeyoung would leave Paris directly for Los Angeles. Because while others try to keep up appearances, Jungkook and Taeyoung continue to show themselves as they are. Without the need for acting, without scripts, without feigning a relationship they don't feel. Their connection is evident in the simplest details, in how they look at each other, how they understand each other, and how they accompany each other without needing to pretend in front of the cameras. Unlike other relationships forced to generate content, the one between Jungkook and Taeyoung doesn't seem to have those strings attached. They don't need to prove anything because their relationship is evident. And although some want to deny it, those who observe closely can see the difference. It's no coincidence that every time they're together, everything around them seems more natural. The atmosphere changes, and so do they. Taeyoung's presence seems to give Jungkook peace of mind, something that can't be achieved with just anyone. Meanwhile, the attempts of some to create stories between Jimin and Jungkook remain just that, stories. Often fabricated, reinforced by the company, and supported by those who refuse to accept the obvious. Fanfictions are created that aren't supported by real evidence. Common gestures are exaggerated, and moments that speak volumes are hidden. But videos don't lie, and neither do attitudes. Jungkookers continue to interpret these encounters as signs of a deeper relationship, when in reality they are moments created to maintain the public's interest. If that emotional closeness truly existed, there would be no need to force scenes or maintain minimal contact. Jungkook himself has shown that if he feels comfortable with someone, he shows it without a problem, and that's not the case with Jimin. What happens with Taekook seems more like a strategy than a real relationship. There's no naturalness, no emotional reciprocity. Everything feels cold, controlled. Meanwhile, between Taekook, there is freedom, authenticity, and a form of connection that cannot be manufactured. The way Taeyoung and Jungkook communicate without words, how they support each other in off-camera moments, and how their gestures soften when they are together is proof enough to understand that their relationship goes beyond what others try to portray. Even when they are far apart, as in this case, where Taeyoung flies from Paris to Los Angeles, fans don't lose hope of seeing them together again. Because they know that this relationship doesn't require company approval or prepared scripts. What exists between them feels real. And that's why so many Taekookers remain attentive to their every move, not to invent theories, but to confirm what is already evident. At first glance, many believe that what happens between Taeyoung and Jungkook are unimportant moments, as if their interactions were just things that happen spontaneously. But when you really look at it, when you analyze each of their behaviors, everything changes. What seems casual becomes something they repeat over and over again, without needing to think about it. This is how two people who have a real, deep, and constant bond act. Taeyoung notice it, study it, understand it. The behavior between them doesn't feel staged. It's not a game for attention or an effort to be seen. It's something that flows naturally. When they're close, it doesn't seem like they're forcing themselves to do anything. They touch each other, they look at each other, they seek each other out, as if being next to each other were a necessity, not a choice. That's what differentiates an authentic relationship from one that only seeks publicity. The gestures aren't grand or exaggerated. But they're repeated so often that they cease to be random. Jungkook doesn't need to look around before touching Taeyoung. Taeyoung isn't surprised when Jungkook follows him or waits for him. They do it without speaking. That's routine. That's what people who truly understand each other do. When two people plan an action to make an impact, it shows. You can see the effort. But there's none of that between them. There's no intention to impress, but rather the confidence to act as they are, without filters. Taekook isn't a story of a single moment, it's a sequence of events that, one after the other, reveal a connection that doesn't fade over time. Many have tried to deny what exists between them, saying it's just a close friendship. But if you look closely, the behaviors they repeat aren't typical of simple friends. Not all friends look at each other with that attention or seek each other out so often, even when there are no cameras around. Nor do they all touch each other the way they do, without fear, without thinking, as if their bodies knew where to go. This isn't new. It's been happening for years. From their earliest days, Taeyoung and Jungkook have displayed a closeness unlike any other. And although their surroundings have changed, they still share that same rhythm. They haven't drifted apart. They haven't lost their way of living together. This constant coexistence is part of who they are. That's why Taeyoung and Jungkook don't analyze a single photo or video, they observe how, over time, each gesture forms a pattern. That pattern is the true language between them. What they don't say with words, they say with their movements, their looks, their way of being together. And that's where the difference lies. Bonds born from emotional habit can't be faked. If something is repeated naturally, if two people act the same in different places, at different times, under different conditions, that's not acting. It's connection.